I want to start off by saying thank you to our servicemen and women and to veterans in light of Memorial Day. Thank you for your service. And I want to honor those who died so that I can share what I'm about to say. Late last night, I heard the news of George Floyd. He was a black man in Minneapolis, Minnesota, who died from excessive force of a white police officer's knee on his neck. Despite the fact that the officer told him he couldn't breathe, he still kept his knee on his neck, and because of that, George Floyd died. The 4 officers on the scene were fired, showing that the department agreed that this use of force was excessive and unnecessary. This is one example of countless stories that show a pattern of racial profiling, prejudice, and systematic racism in this country. The truth is, we are only 56 and a half years removed from Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. Our country is far from being fully healed from this sin. Police brutality is only one of many examples that illustrate this fact. But I want to help us today by answering the question, what should our response be to something like this? For me, the facts of this event, when they settled into my mind, I felt outraged, sad, discouraged, confused, and frustrated. But then I remembered the truth of the world that we live in today. It is a fallen, broken world that is in the process of being restored into God's original intent for his creation. If I think of what happened to George Floyd could never happen to me, I am mistaken. If I think that I am not capable of the evil act that the officers committed at the scene, I am mistaken. Let's look at biblical figures as examples. Adam rebelled against the one who created him. Abraham pimped out his wife to save his own life. Jacob stole his brother's birthright and blessing. David impregnated one of his soldiers' wives and then sent that soldier to the front lines to die. Peter denied Jesus 3 times and then had to be corrected later on in his public ministry for his own racism. When events like this one happen, I think we should feel anger and sadness, but we should never feel self-righteous or judgmental. Jesus is the one who suffered the ultimate injustice. He lived a perfect life free of sin, but willingly died in our place for our sins. The only righteousness that is available to us is righteousness that comes from what Jesus did for us on the cross. None of us have lived sin-free lives, and therefore none of us have a right to look down on the officers. So what do? How do we respond? Well, I think there's 4 ways we can respond. 1, pray. Pray for the family and friends of George Floyd. Pray for the officers, and pray for the end of systematic racism in this country. Number 2, raise awareness of events like this one. Do so in a way to sympathize with our brothers and sisters who are people of color, and do so in a way that's going to reach those people who need to hear this message the most. Reach out to your friends and neighbors and coworkers who are people of different races. Invite them into your life. Have conversations with them about their experiences. Educate yourself on different perspectives. And number 4, consider further action. What are some ways that God has called you to be proactive instead of reactive to this issue of racism? Conversations with people of color are a good place to start, but there's also groups that you can join. One that we did recently at Jubilee was called Be the Bridge. And I think there's more groups of the same kind that talk about the issue of systematic racism and white privilege and those kind of things in our different churches and local communities. Read books and listen to messages on this issue. Letters to a Birmingham Jail and Right Color, Wrong Culture are 2 books that were really helpful to me. And the last one is not talked about as much. Consider adoption and foster care. I believe that as more people of means foster and adopt kids of color and give them opportunities that they would not otherwise have, these kids will grow into adults that will be in positions of influence that will enact more change in this area. I hope you found this helpful.